From the EPAWA headquarters in South Allentown, Pennsylvania, it's time for Weather Weeklies, an informative video of the ins and outs of weather that affect you most in the EPAWA coverage area. The following segment is a weekly video blog, and the opinions of the forecaster do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the staff of Eastern PA Weather Authority LLC as a whole, nor its constituents. Without further ado, here is meteorologist Bobby Martrus with Weather Weeklies.
And good Sunday morning to another edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, February 22nd. And some of you are digging out this morning, some are just getting out the brooms, and others are getting out the snow blowers, as we got a winter storm that we are dealing with that has now ended, except for across extreme southern New Jersey and Delaware, but we're dealing with rain down there. I'm going to do a radar review here over the last 24 hours and show you what was going on here. It was looking quite ominous. Here's a current image. Now we're going to go back to the recycle here. Look at this big amount of snow. Look, it was coming, and then all of a sudden this dry slot formed here. This was expected. This was part of our expectations for this dry slot. Of course, it filled in last night across eastern PA, and then another surge again in the wee hours of the morning before it finally pulled east. And now we're just dealing with some leftover rain here down here by southern New Jersey and Delaware. But it looked very big and huge on the radar. It looked like it was going to overperform, and in some areas it did. Right down here, where we're snowing most of the day, down towards the Philadelphia area, Delaware County, Chester County, southern Bucks, southern Montgomery, those areas were getting hit pretty good up by Trenton. So we had some pretty good snows here, especially down this area. But the northern side here was in this lull for a long time up here until we finally got into later in the day. You got some snow up here. They gave you a couple inches of snow there, but that was about it. Most of the forcing was further to the south. And now we're going to get into our this was our final call. Now this is the final call that we did mid-afternoon. Actually, we had a final call obviously the night before. We do adjust. That's something we do during what's called nowcasting. If we see something changing, we're not going to keep up a map up there that is not going to be true. We have this axis of the heaviest a little bit further to the north here, not quite the Scranton Wilkes-Barre or anything like that, but we did have this axis a little bit further north, like where this blue is here on the top side. So we did see what ended up happening with this system is the same thing that's been happening with seasonal trends all year long, and that is the northern stream is very fast. The northern stream is very fast because the Pacific jet is so fast. That has been why we've had so many progressive systems this year. We've talked about in the past videos. Everything moves along very quickly. Well, when this storm comes in from the south here, and it meets up with that northern stream, it actually shears it out on the north side, and that's what happened across this area here. So you couldn't really get into the big totals here, and everything was forced to shift to the south here. So these totals up here in the 1 to 3 inch range did happen, but that came later, and everything, the best forcing ended up down here, down to the south. Actually, best forcing, if I had to draw the best forcing area, it actually was a little bit more like this. This was really your best forcing area, right in here, within that 4 to 7. So those are the areas that got 6-7 inches of snow. All right, until we got a changeover here late last night. But we had some amounts that were still above 4 inches in Reading, above 4 inches in Allentown. But as you get a little further north here, obviously, like Williamsport only ended up with an inch, but that's the projection we had here of 1 to 3. So that's what happened. Basically, we did adjust mid-afternoon once we saw that the northern stream was going to be too fast, and the models were completely wrong again. Insisting this is going to be further to the north. So we did adjust when necessary, and looks like our adjusted totals look like they were spot on with this. But let's move on to the long range pattern now. We're going to get into, now this hasn't been updated yet because there really hasn't been a need to. There's nothing except for temperatures. I want you to focus on two things here: below average, below average. That's what we're going into for the rest of February and March. We're not really expecting any warm-ups, and that does not look like it's going to change. This long range will be updated this week. Long range has not been updated yet because of the every 3 day snow threats we've had, and we haven't had time. Most recent one that was not even included on here was yesterday, the 21st, and the next one might not be until March. All right, so it looks like we're getting a long break here, and I'll show you why. We're going to get into the Matt-Julian oscillation first. This is a measure of the convection along the equator in relation to the international dateline. Okay. Here is your equator. This is the entire world. This is a snapshot. This is a infrared satellite imagery of the entire world. Here is your international dateline. So that was the equator that went horizontally, and then vertically here, right here, is the international dateline. You're looking at where the convection is in relation to this dateline, and you can see, we are hoping it would get closer to the dateline, the better for our winter weather. This is now progressive. This is now backwards. This is now between, Darwin, Australia, back to Tahiti and stuff like that. So this is all the way back here. This is a phase 4 or 5 signal right here. All right, phase 4 and phase 5 is not very good, because what you want to see happen is this. You need this area of convection to be closer out here, which will throw heights at the western ridge, give you a big ridge out here, a big trough in the east. It gives you the cold and the storms here along the east coast. Okay, big amplification. Well, that's not really happening right now. Instead, this area of convection is further west. Again, here's the international date line. This is further west, so this is a phase 4 or phase 5 signal. Okay, of course we're right here. What you want this to do is be further east. So if it's this far west, it is throwing heights, but it's throwing the heights of the ridge that's out here further west. That gives the better chance for the west coast of the United States to be colder and warmth along the east coast. Now this has a lag effect a little bit, but I do think it's going to have an effect on our pattern here as we go forward here into at least early January, and I'll show you that in a minute. Here is the Madden-Julian oscillation. This is the last one last projection we did last week, and this is the current. And I know this looks like a Greek to a lot of people here, but this is just what we were just looking at on this infrared imagery. This is no different here. So if you look at the IR image, this is just taking the model, this IR image, and making it a model projection, put it into a model format. Okay, shows you the different phases. We just talked about phase 4 and phase 5. Okay, right now, a week ago, the models projected this to be in the circle of death. The circle of death is this middle part where there are none of these phases. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It is in none of those phases. That means the Madden-Julian oscillation has no effect on our pattern, and it can take on any of these whenever it wants. Okay, it can take on any of these looks if it's in the circle of death. So we go to this week. Here's this week here, still in the circle of death. Okay, but it's starting to give some signs that it's more phase 5ish. You see these streams kind of going in like this. That's because it has like a phase 4, phase 5 look right now. All right. Again, the model projection is for it to remain in the circle of death and not come out. Might try to come out like what's doing right now in the phase 4, phase 5, and then collapse right back in the circle of death again. So basically what I'm saying is the Madden-Julian oscillation will have no effect on our pattern as long as it is in the circle of death here. Every once in a while it'll show signs of being in the circle of death. Sometimes it'll show signs of looking phase 4, phase 5-ish. Sometimes it might look favorable in phase 8, 1, or 2. Okay? Or 7, 8, 1, and 2, I should say. Those are the favorable stages. Right now, just looking by the infrared satellite imagery, I'm telling you this is more of a phase 4, phase 5 look. All right, so that's not a very favorable phase. The only thing we have good for us right now is we still have these warm sea surface temperatures in the eastern Pacific. So as long as you have this up here and this up here, this doesn't just go away. Sea surface temperatures don't incredibly rise dramatically. And they are starting to rise slightly. Or excuse me, just a drop, I should say. They're starting to drop slightly. So these reds indicate that they're above normal temperatures. Why is that important? The sea surface temperatures in this area of the country, or this part of the world, promotes a ridge. As long as you have a ridge here, you have a trough in the east, and that means colder weather here. All right, so you still have this going for you. This is not going to just disappear overnight. All right, this is going to stay warm, and it's going to be if it does decrease in temperature, it's going to do so gradually. This isn't going away, so you still have that going for you. So look at the setup going forward, and if we look at the ridge out west, again, the reds are the ridge, the blues are the cold and the troughs. All right, this is where we're at right now. Or actually, let's look at the 27th of this month. This is looking 5 days from now. Still a ridge here, big bowl in the country here, big bowl of cold air coming in. All right, so the entire country is cold, but it's more Midwest centric. All right, so everything's centered out here in the Midwest. This is where the core of the cold is going to be. We're going to be cold, but just slightly below normal. You can see that right here. This is where we are. You see maybe just the lightest shade of blue. Just very slightly below normal temperatures. So now you got to remember, normal temperatures for this time of year are now in the 40s for most places, unless you're getting up by Scranton and Williamsport. All right, so you're getting into the 40s now. So if it's going to be colder than normal and only slightly below normal, so you can expect temperatures in the mid-30s instead of 40, or maybe down by Philadelphia, maybe near 40 instead of 38, 40 degrees instead of 45, if that makes any sense. Okay, so that's the setup there. All right, we're going to go to the next. Now this is important because we used a 1980 analog for the month of March, and you can see it's very similar. Big bowl across the middle below normal temperatures, and that's exactly what's happening as we head into the end of February. That looks like it's going to continue into March. So you're going to have below normal temperatures, we think, going into the month of March. I do think this holds on until St. Patrick's Day. Everybody's like saying to me all the time, well, when's spring going to start? We're going to get early spring. No, we're not going to get early spring, but we will have this cold release, I think, after somewhere between St. Patrick's Day and the equinox, which is the first day of spring. Somewhere between there. So I do think through calendar end of winter, winter will remain. And then we go to the next look here. This is a look at March 1st here. You might have the models are starting to indicate that you might have a little bit of a ridge building here. Ridge, of course, is above normal. Might get above normal for a few days. Again, big ridge out here in the west here, but it's in the wrong position. That allows for a trough out west. All your cold is out west now. Warmth is here, and that's because this ridge is pumping up here. But because of the MJO being in phase 4, phase 5, it's too far west. You need this to be further east, which will send this trough further east and give us a chance of storms. And because it's doing that, by the time you get to March 3rd, it finally moves east. You can see that moving over to eastern Alaska and the Gulf of Alaska here. All right, now you get this big bowl again of cold temperatures. Here's your PV, polar vortex settling in, okay, and you're cold across this whole area of the country. Cold, cold, cold. All right. Now, as far as storms here, you haven't heard me talk about storms in this entire video. That's because there are no storms until actually the models are projecting at the max range. This is going out over 200 hours in the future, so we're not expecting any storm systems at all. Not on Wednesday of this week that the models were originally showing. They lost that idea. Not on over this weekend. They've lost that idea. The next one they show is actually next Tuesday, with a chance for snow, maybe some mix. Now, you have to remember, if this is correct, this is March 3rd, okay? March 3rd, you're starting to get into problems with the sun angle, all right? So you need a perfect system here coming in here at the right time. So you're like, oh, well, let's get these coastal storms. Well, that's not going to help you anymore down here, South Jersey and Delaware, unless you get a perfect track. You're going to need a perfect track, perfect system that's just bombing out here along the coastline. Otherwise, you're going to have your typical mixing in the middle, snow to the north, and rain to the south. Now, this is not taken verbatim here. We have not given up on the weekend storm. We have given up on Wednesday. We haven't given up on the weekend storm. It just had it yesterday, and now it's just poof, gone. Okay? And this might happen again, too. This might be another poof, gone type thing. Who knows? Right now, I know we're going into a quieter pattern this week. We're not dealing with these storms every 3 days, which is great. We can finally get a break as forecasters, but I know that's not good for snow lovers. Although some places are now near seasonal averages in snowfall, believe it or not. I know for a fact that Allentown is dead set on normal winter now, as far as total snowfall. So there's a couple different places that are like that, and we still have other shots as we go into March of being below normal temperatures. And as long as you have those shots of being below normal temperatures through about St. Patrick's Day or the equinox, you're still going to have the opportunity for snow. They're going to have to be perfectly timed, and they're going to have to be taking the right track and things like that, you know, for certain areas to get snow. You have a better chance of still seeing more snow up here, up the further north you go. But we definitely will have more chances as we go through the middle, at least the middle of the month. So we'll be tracking this. We'll update this again in a week and see where we're at. But right now, looks like we have a quiet week ahead. I'm Eastern PA Weather Authority meteorologist Bobby Martrich, and that is this edition of Weather Weeklies for February 22nd, 2015. Have a great week.